Efficiency. I'm Scott Aument, Chairman of GATE. I'm also a representative on the RTM District 6. GATE was formed when a dozen or so concerned citizens of Groton got together and decided to do something about their local government. GATE was formed as a political action committee to express our issues and to be a source of information to the Groton taxpayers. We felt the electorate needed to better know the policies, processes, and ongoings of how and why their tax dollars are being used. Our overall mission is to provide a more transparent and informative source to the Groton electorate so they may make more informed decisions on how their tax dollars are being spent. Rosanne?
Hi, I'm Rosanne Kotowski. I would also like to welcome you to the GATE Show. The GATE Show came about in order to present the residents of Groton an alternative perspective to tax and spend. Today we welcome to our show two RTM candidates, Bruce McDermott, currently serving on the RTM from District 7, also past Board of Education Chair, and our very own Scott Aument, currently serving on the RTM from District 6. It is our hope at GATE that Bruce and Scott will be reelected to the RTM and continue to advocate for alternatives to tax and spend. GATE members have provided questions to our guests in advance regarding the town of Groton issues. First question is, it has been suggested that Groton politicians stop talking about services, which leads to emotions and is a great way to increase government, and actually discuss government operations. The argument is that budget reductions will reduce services. However, if government is made to be efficient, will that be necessary? How efficient do you think the town of Groton government is? Scott?
Okay, being an RTM member now for almost 2 years, seen a lot of the ongoings of the town. I've done a lot of research, as you know. I think there are several areas that right now we can consolidate or combine, like EMS dispatch. I think we have an EMS dispatch that'll go out to either Groton Long Point or the city that comes through one spot. So I think we can consolidate and reduce monies that will not reduce any services. So that's one area. I've been working very hard this year in the RTM. The planning department, I was on that committee. We reduced their budget by approximately $74,000 based on comparison that I did, and I had help, and that based on other towns of similar sizes. So there's areas that if we do the work and if we get the right information, whether that be the counselors or the RTM, I think that is something that needs to be done, and that's what I continue to plan to do as a representative on the RTM.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, I think most of the operations in the town are reasonably well put together and well run. In comparison to other towns around the state, we really do a pretty good job, but we have a real shortfall in revenue, and as a consequence, we really have to take down some of the budgets for each department. It's difficult, very difficult to accomplish. There isn't a lot of support to do that. It's mostly pick and choose, and I think a lot of the wrong things get taken down. But I don't really see any alternative. That's got to be what's going to happen at the next RTM, I think.
Do you have any particular areas, like, for instance, Public Works? Our last guest was talking about Parks and Rec. I mean, is there any areas where you think that you should target?
Well, one of the reasons I moved to Groton was so I could walk around downtown Mystic. So I'm pretty involved in the parks and so forth, and I've been supportive of that for quite a while. Excuse me, and I'm on the Trails Committee for the parks, and we're really blessed with these jewels that we have around us, whether they're state parks or they're our own town parks. And that's one area that really, the only problem with it is it doesn't generate any tax revenue for anybody. So I've been pretty supportive right up till this last budget session for open space land. Sure. But I don't think that we can really afford too much more at this stage of the game. As I said before, we just have to worry about shortfalls in revenues, I think, at this stage of the game. So, and the other area that I'm interested in is the police department. Public Works I know nothing about. You know, I take them at their word. They need a new machine to clean out the effluent that flows into the town. That's fine. You know, you have to take them at their word for that. But with the police, I'm pretty well versed in what goes on. Not the day-to-day operations, of course, but how much it costs to run the department, and how many officers we have, and how that compares with other towns, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Given the situation with Pfizer, the uncertainty of the subbase, and the declining grant list, which you briefly mentioned, we at GATE believe there is an urgent need to discuss tax policy. Should the town of Groton tax its residents to satisfy the decrease in revenues, or should it scale back and recalibrate operations to account for reality? Now, you kind of already mentioned some of that, so the grand list is going down. Revenues are going down. We all know that. We discussed that on a previous show.
Sure.
What do you think we should do?
Well, I really think we just have to cut back on some of the department's funding. It's not as though we can't run the town pretty well without a full bloated budget. I don't think there's any department really that can't come to heel in that respect. And but on the other hand, it's really, really tough to get it accomplished. We saw in the last budget session, and in the council as well, just everybody just has their own pet idea of what they think the amount of money should be that we spend. And even when we have had cuts proposed by committees, my committee and the police department, when I recommended a little less money, it wasn't a lot of money, but it did not go through. And I really don't see that there's any reason why all of the departments can't take something off the table. I think the town manager did a pretty good job in presenting a budget to us last year. You know, we asked him to bring in a budget that was even keel, and he did that. But the council and the RTM didn't go along with that.
Well, I'll answer this question myself. Also, I think there's areas that we can cut. It's certain things that are nice to have that we've been used to. I think we're going to have to learn to do without, because it's putting strain on other areas of the budget. For instance, my opinion of government, it should provide certain essential things like public safety, for one, roads, and we can do that, and they've continued to do that well. And I think we have plenty of resources to do that, maybe even more resources. So the pressure that other areas of the budget on, as Bruce said, the pet peeve projects, we need to really, do our research on whatever. Contact your RTM representatives. My number's on the website. Contact your town councilors. Tell them. Do the research. Tell them what you think you can do without. So, and I look forward to that from my constituents. There are several people that contact me on a frequent basis. So I think the pressure that is put on other areas of the budget, as Bruce said, by some of these projects, it's really hurting us all in aggregate. And then maybe we can come together as a whole town of Groton and have that debate and get it out on the table. But, you know, as Bruce said, make little cuts and you get shot down. I mean, that's really putting the burden back on the town manager to raise the mill rate again, and I don't think that's where we should go.
No. Okay, this is for you, Scott. You've been a strong voice on the RTM regarding declining revenues. And back to that Building 118. As reported, Pfizer Building 118 that brought in $2.3 million in tax revenue has been demolished or is in the process. What can the RTM do to offset the decrease besides going to the taxpayers?
Okay. The RTM is the budgetary arm, the way it's set up. Personally, even though I'm on RTM, I'd rather see a budget referendum. However, this is the process that we have. So I've been through the process several times. I think that we need to, we're the budgetary arm, not look at what we need to cut. Just say, hey, this is the
This is how
money
much
this
money you have.
department,
That's right.
like I did with the planning this year. This is the money. I'm not saying to cut X amount of people or X amount. That's the job of the department head. And it went through, and it flew all the way
Surprisingly.
through. So I think that if we do that, we just got to keep trying as RTM representatives to keep that up.
Do you have any suggestions, Bruce, on what we can do about that building coming down at Pfizer and what to do with that $2.3 million? Did the taxpayers just take another hit?
Well, I'm not particularly cheerful about the outcome of this situation, to be honest with you, having sat through a couple of budget sessions. In my experience, most of the people that I'm aware of really don't take that much interest in what's going on. The citizens don't take that much interest about the day-to-day activities and the dollars and cents involved. Occasionally, when I'm having coffee down in Carson's and Noank, somebody will stop me, but rarely. And I think that that's a failing we have at large in the society, and people really depend upon people like us to do something. I think we just have to depend upon the town manager and do again what we did last year, except maybe make the case a little bit more, maybe make it heavier than we have before to see if we can affect any savings. But I don't know, but I certainly don't think we should be going back to the taxpayers for more money at all. You know, the whole idea is if you're in business, there's only two ways you're going to make a profit. You're going to cut your costs or raise revenues. We're absolutely not going to be able to raise revenues the way we're going. I don't think that there's any way that we have left except to cut costs. And I hope it doesn't have to come to a crisis like it has with the fire district in Pequannock Bridge, you know, which is a whole can of worms.
About that, it just seemed like, and this is off topic a bit, but when the residents of Groton actually had a say, they voted to decrease spending. They voted. You were at that meeting.
I was.
And I wonder if the residents of Groton actually had an opportunity to vote on how their tax dollars were spent, if we would have an everything, all you want, Christmas kind of budget, where we have more than we need. We have everything.
Well, the anger at that meeting, which I attended also, with Jim Laughlin, a neighbor of mine, an RTM member, was palpable. I mean, people were angry, and they wanted to see those taxes come down. And unfortunately, it wasn't done really well. The meeting was pretty well mishandled, I thought. The decorum was pretty much absent. It's too bad it wasn't televised so that we could go back and analyze some of the things, but it just was not a well put together meeting. But partially because people were upset and wanted to be heard, and there was a lot of yelling and that sort of thing. But in the final analysis, they did vote to really take a piece out of that budget. Yeah, and I think that that's exactly what has to happen here. I just hope it doesn't come to that kind of a crisis situation, because nobody's really going to be happy after that kind of a deal.
Right. I am in Pequannock Bridge District. I pay my fire taxes to them, and I tell a lot of people at work and who I see, you got to look at your tax bill, because there's two things when the July taxes come out that are on. There's a mill rate for the town, which I believe is like 20 point something, and you also have whatever your fire district you are in, you have another mill rate. Pequannock Bridge being the highest, it was 5.9. After that meeting, it went down to 5.2. So that is one of the reasons why I went to that meeting, Bruce, because I am in that district, and two, they're the highest in the town, and I wanted to know why. I do agree with you that meeting was probably one of the worst run meetings I've ever been to. I know they're trying to work something out with the state. It doesn't look like it's going good, and I know the mayor and the council's trying to talk to them, but I think that's something for probably another gate show, maybe.
Sorry about that.
So I hate to get sidetracked.
Okay, why don't you take the next one?
Okay, I won't ask this to myself, but I'll ask you. As was the case in last budget season, the town council efforts to impact the city of Groton, Long Point Police and Highway budgets failed in the RTM. While it was understood that there will be no charter changes that involve consolidation, please speak to the possibility of combining services of the town, the city, and Groton Long Point.
Well, as far as combining services, the only one that's ever come up is the dispatch.
Right.
I'm not aware of, there's been some possibility of working a little bit closer with Groton Long Point because of the hurricane that we had. That went awry. But I don't really see that we're going to find any savings, really. The only way you're going to find savings is if you consolidate these areas, and that's not going to happen.
That's true.
And certainly not in my lifetime. So that's really beating a dead horse to even contemplate that kind of a situation. We really, I tried to explain to the one of the folks, the librarian in New London tonight, how the town and the city and Groton Long Point all come together to have an effective government. And you know, it's really tough to explain this to somebody because they just ask question after question because it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, we live with it and it works out okay for the most part. I think by and large, Groton's pretty well run. Most of the department managers are pretty good people and smart.
Except for our taxes go up
But
every single
absolutely,
year.
and when you get into a budget session with an executive of a department, he knows a lot more about that department than you do. And he can justify any single expense he wants to. There's no question about that. I mean, I don't care how well versed in committees you are, even as well versed as I am in some of the numbers, it almost doesn't make any difference when you present it to people in the RTM. A lot of times they don't want to hear that.
Right.
You know, there's an old saying, don't tell somebody something they don't want to hear.
Right.
And I think that that's
They're
largely
protecting
true.
their status quo. They're just,
Well, it's safe.
yeah.
You know, everybody's afraid if you decrease their budget 5%, which would be a very small number, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that somehow services are going to suffer. Well, if you had a corporation and you were running a corporation, it's a continual effort. It goes on all the time across this country. And when times are good, you can expand. When times are bad, you retract a little bit because it's the only thing that makes sense.
That's right.
And I'm going to agree with you on that. I think it's time for somewhat of a contraction, Rosanne, is what I think, because the council and the RTM is getting together to figure out, you know, the next year's budget process, albeit, you know, new elections upcoming in November. So the suggestion of getting all parties together to debate things, we need to know what is coming at us. And I think we talked about that in the last couple of RTM meetings and in the last gate show, because there is a bow wave of a huge tax increase upon us. So instead of throwing it out into the surprise budget, oh, Groton Long Point, or oh, the city, we're going to cut you, why don't you say, hey, look, this is what we're up against in a combined meeting or whatever. Taxes are going to go up. Is that what you want, or can you help us out? I don't know if that'll work or not.
It's worth a try, though.
But we got to get some kind of ideas. I mean, the people of the city to say, hey, you know, Mayor Galbraith, can you come up with some areas to cut? Suggestions. Hey, the president of Groton Long Point, what areas, you know, can you cut? I mean, all putting it on one single budget session meeting kind of, you know, undermines, I think, the process a little bit. As Bruce said, you know, they may not like what, you know, they're being fed at the time, so they don't want to hear that. So I think that if we come together more earlier now, maybe in my lifetime, Bruce, we might see that. I'm a little bit more optimistic, I guess.
I've lived a little longer than you have.
Yeah, I understand. and I think I've known you for a while now. I think you've served the town of Groton pretty well, and looking forward to serving with you again in the RTM.
Thank you.
Representative McDermott, you have done an incredible amount of research regarding police data. Could you give us some details so our viewers understand the level of staffing in Groton compared to other towns?
Sure. When I first got on that committee, I had no idea that I was going to get quite as involved as I did, but it turns out, just for some informational aspects to this thing, that we have had countrywide a decrease in crime over the last 20 years, like about 50%.
Wow.
So if you go back to like 1992 or 3 and you look at the numbers that we had in the police department then and what the crime rate incident was then, and you look at it now, it's half of what it was essentially. But we still have the same number of people.
Right.
So the question becomes has the staffing level, which has remained essentially constant, responsible for the decrease in crime? Well, probably not. It's a demographic situation. Nobody's really completely sure about why that's happened. The prisons are full. We have 3-strike rules. There's all sorts of things that may come into play here. My own sense is that we just have less crime. Even New York has been decreasing their police force.
Right.
When they had increased it markedly to account for some of the crime wave that occurred back in the 20 years ago. Now it's down quite a bit. But you're not going to get anybody wanting to decrease the numbers of policemen in their department by any means. We have the same situation with the city and Groton Long Point to a degree. We really probably are overstaffed in my opinion, but not greatly so. When you look at the numbers, when you compare what our crime rates are, for instance, with our closest towns, which would be New London and Norwich. We're pretty close in population to New London, for instance, and Norwich would be the same if we combined all 3, Groton Long Point, the city, and the town. But the crime statistics are markedly different. The city, for instance, has, if you take violent crime, they had 24 crimes that were considered to be violent in 2011. We had 36, a pretty low number, relatively speaking. A town like New London had, I think it was 319.
Whoa.
And Norwich was like a 133, as I recall. However, Norwich has, I think they have 74 officers, and they're managing a much bigger crime problem than we are. And
How many do we have in the town?
we've got about 65, 68, somewhere
68.
around there.
Yeah.
That's just the officers, not the support personnel. In the city, you have a very, very peculiar situation. We've got a 2.5 mile square area to patrol, very small area. And you've got major security forces, really,
Right.
that take care of all of the business areas
Right.
that are
Electric boat.
important. We've got like 80 officers, or
Yeah.
security personnel, I should
Right.
say, at Electric Boat. 7 down at Yukon. I don't know how many Pfizer has, but probably a pretty good contingent.
Sure.
But whenever they have a problem, they have to call the city people. But it's a small area. Is the number of people that they have in that department too many? I think so. But when you go to compare what we have in Groton or the city or Groton Long Point with other towns, you can't make a comparison easily. Our area is big. It's like 30 square miles. I've got numbers here that I can give you, but trying to compare the city of Groton, for instance, with 2.5 miles of patrol area with anybody else is like almost impossible.
Right.
I mean, I think Portland has 4.5 miles, but the statistics for the numbers of for the household income could be completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, the major areas that you would ordinarily compare to make an effective comparison, you really can't do that. You really almost have to rely pretty much on, are you running an efficient department, given what the crime rates are, et cetera, on the local area.
Well, one thing that to consider is if Groton is overstaffed, if you were to reduce 5 officers, that's $500,000 right there.
Absolutely.
So that could be an area where
Well,
we
the
could look.
supervisory personnel, I believe, are probably, we're too heavy there, in my opinion. Those are some big numbers. I mean, to put one patrol officer on duty is like $90,000. So it's a big number. When we had our budget session last year and we were talking about Groton Long Point and their staffing, as opposed to ours, it's actually cheaper for them to do it than us. You know, of course, Groton Long Point has a little bit different focus on their
That's
police
true.
department.
They know.
Okay, this went by really fast. Okay. We would like to end the show with a statement from each of you. This is your chance to let our viewers know what you hope to accomplish on the RTM. Bruce, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I would hope and pray that some of the projects that we have that are forthcoming, particularly the Flanders Road project, as much as I'm in favor of that kind of thing, having been in business for many years, I realize that's a good thing. I think it's a bad time to do it. The police station is in tough shape. I'm kind of torn about that. I would like to spend the money incrementally as opposed to all at once.
That's a position of gate as well.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I don't know if that'll fly. I mean, they got a bad roof. They need this, that, and the other thing, security. I think it'll probably pass, however, with the electorate, and I'm not badly disposed to having that happen. But I am against the Flanders Road project as much as I would like to see it happen, simply because we don't have the money for it anymore.
True.
And our education budget is 66% essentially of our total budget, and we really can't touch any of that. And our enrollment's going down, and yet the expenses are going up there. So
That's another show.
these are all things that have to be taken into account, and I would hope we can keep the lid on this particular budget session and maybe save some money.
Thank you. Scott?
All right, as a RTM member, and I like to listen to my constituents a lot, and they tell me they can't afford more tax increases. So, as you know, I've worked hard on trying to reduce the tax burden. As the chairman of GATE, I'm against the Flanders Road. As Bruce said, it's not time. There's no return on investment in anywhere near future. So, and I believe the voters will vote that down also. Kind of a coin toss, Bruce, with, in my opinion, with the police station. There are some need there, and I mentioned that in the last show. There's a roof that needs fixed, there's boilers that need replaced, and there's video equipment that definitely needs fixed. However, I think it can be done in different ways, as you said, piecemeal. We in Groton have a bad habit of putting out referendums that are extravagant, phase 1 of the schools and phase 1 of Thames Street, that could be done just as efficiently with a less money. So I think we need to look at, as representatives of the town, keep looking at these things to reduce them. That's it.
That's it. Thank
All
you,
right.
Scott.
All right.
Okay, thank you for watching The Gate Show, and thank our guests, and
Remember, open the gate to transparency.